Hi everyone, it's Marissa here from Rise High, and I am joined by
Lockie Turner from Turner Real Estate.
and also
Brian from Rise High Investor.
and we are super excited to bring you the September market Adelaide property market update as we do every quarter. It's been, obviously we're in spring now, although it doesn't feel like it today. The weather's been a bit all over the place, hasn't it? But it's springtime now, and springtime traditionally for the real estate market means a lot of activity. Is that right, Lockie?
It sure is. In fact, buyers would be loving it because there is a little bit more stock. So we use that term for houses essentially, so houses for sale. For rent, it's more of a consistent amount of stock. But certainly for renters, there'll be more choice coming into the end of the year because a lot of the leases are on the calendar year. So for renters, watch out for that. But for buyers, the levels are certainly higher at this time.
And stock is traditionally higher in spring, from my understanding, when compared to other seasons of the year. But for the last few years, we have had a shortage of stock in terms of houses to sell. And I understand that's really one of the large driving factors of why we've seen such large, consistent increases in property values. Are you saying that, like, it's good to hear that stock levels have increased, but are you saying that stock levels this spring are comparable to what they were, previous years in spring, or are they still on the low side?
Yeah, I think overall it seems to be on the low side. And that probably changed about five years ago, where stock levels generally are 30% down from what they used to be, and now that seems to be
pre-COVID.
that seems to be the new normal, where it's just generally low. I think the other reason for that is because, or one of the many reasons for that, is because people are only selling really if they have to.
Yes.
And there's lots of different reasons for that. But when you've got a sort of a buoyant market and the stock levels are higher, it's when people are entering the market to speculate and get in and out. So the stock levels are high, but you're not seeing that so much anymore. People are trying to work out where to spend their money if they've got any spare.
Yes.
And one of the best investments to park your money is property.
Absolutely.
Because you are getting a yield, plus you're getting the capital growth. So you're really getting both at the moment, and Adelaide in particular is a very good market for that.
Yeah, we've seen I think it was about 2.5% increase in the Adelaide
for the
property
quarter,
values
yes.
for the last quarter, which has just been consistently growing. Adelaide's just had a really great run, hasn't it?
Yeah,
for a long time now.
Yeah, well, I am able to say from the front line here at Turner that investors are very active in the market. Our property management services are in demand. We've been attracting a lot of investors just over the last 2 months, in particular which are above our usual levels. So investors are out there.
And we're certainly seeing an increase in investors, not only Adelaide-based investors wanting to invest in Adelaide, but also investors from interstate. Are you seeing that as well, Lockie?
Yeah, well, we get a lot of those, which is great. So we get a lot of inquiry from people wanting to buy over here. I think there's some marketing going on by some of the builders and the people who do the land divisions, particularly out north.
Yes.
We are seeing a lot of activity from them, but generally it's locals.
Yeah.
And we sort of attract a lot of those people through our Google campaigns and things. So we do certainly speak to a few of those, but investors are very active.
Yeah, and of course Brian specialises in the investor space. So what do you see happening in the world of investing, Brian?
Yeah, so I think just piggyback off what Lockie has said is that investors' confidence have increased significantly. It's a very different conversation that we're starting to have with investor. Probably 6 months ago, they will be like, well, property prices are at this maximum, like, do we still invest or not? The conversations I'm having with investors right now is cool, like with interest rates dropping, with the government scheme changing that I believe Marissa you'll touch on later. Growth in property is probably it's just going to come regardless of where we are right now. So yes, growth will be there, yield will be there as well as interest rates drops. So yes, property investing, like what Lockie has said, is just a really great investment at this stage of time, just because you get the growth, you get the yield aspect of it. And I think Adelaide is just a really good place that you get a mixture of both growth and
I think
yield.
we got to ask ourselves, why is it good? And I think because if you look at national prices, it's still at reasonable value. And that's what the investors like from around Australia. And I think if you're an investor, you should look nationally. You should look at Brisbane markets. I mean, some people are super bold and amazing, and they look internationally as well. But so no, it's a good asset class to get into. the share market's super expensive, isn't it? And
It is super
still highly
expensive at the
volatile.
moment.
I think it's definitely a long-term investment, but there's something about property. You can add value to it physically.
Yeah.
You can borrow against it. Banks are happy to lend up to 80%, I think. Marissa, against
Yeah.
the value of property.
Well, even up to 95%.
and-
And we'll talk about that in a moment.
And you can even live in them if you need to. So there's all sorts of benefits to real estate. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of there's a couple of things that are going to really help property as well continue to grow, and that is the reduction in interest rates. So we have had a rate cut since our last property market update to you. So the rates are softening a little bit, which is easing the pressure, increasing people's borrowing capacities, meaning they've got more money in their own pocket that they can put towards their living expenses and their properties, and also increasing their capacity of what they can buy. But the other thing that's really changing, that's going to really have an impact on the market, is that the government has opened up the First Home Buyers Guarantee Scheme. So this scheme is for first home buyers looking to get into the market, and it effectively allows them to borrow 95% of the value of the property without having to take out lender's mortgage insurance.
Which is normally at 80%.
Which is normally you'd have to take out lender's mortgage insurance if you borrow more than 80%.
Yeah.
And sometimes the lender's mortgage insurance can be tens of thousands of dollars. So it is a significant.
And normally you need a deposit for 10%.
Normally you would need a deposit. Normally you'd need a much larger deposit. So this scheme allows you to effectively borrow 95%, which means that all you need to be able to cover is the 5% of the purchase price plus the purchase costs, which generally are around the 5-6% as well.
And the purchase cost that you're referring to is stamp duty.
Yes, that's right. But this scheme has actually been around for a while, so it's actually nothing new. But what's actually changed is the property value cap.
Yep.
Hasn't it, Brian?
Yeah. Yep. So it's previously 600, which I think
$600,000.
$600?
600 grand.
Be nice if you-
600,000.
Nice if you could get a house for $600. And
Maybe,
But
maybe
yes,
back in 1910.
600
yeah.
grand, I think, as we know today, even in Adelaide, it's pretty tough to find something
Well,
decent.
the median unit price now is, I think, almost around that level. So
Yeah.
So basically, the government has lifted the maximum house purchase price from 600,000 to 900,000. What does that actually mean? That just means that the scheme is going to be available for so many more first home buyers, and it's just a lot more practical.
Yep.
Where it was being used by a really small percentage of first home buyers traditionally, now it's going to be available for many more, which means that we're going to see a lot more demand. Now, when we talk about property values, it's really driven by demand and supply equations. So we've talked about stock. It's a little bit up from last season, but maybe still a bit low for a spring. We're talking about demand from the first home buyer and the reduced interest rates. So we still have this equation where demand is outstripping supply. Do you see that, Lockie?
Well, that's definitely happening, Marissa. By the way, the cap, or the increase in the cap, or this first home buyer scheme came into effect at the 1st of October. So, and what
Start to see the
what the
changes flowing
economists.
through.
So to answer your the question about the supply and demand question a little bit indirectly, would be to say that the key economists are forecasting growth nationally as an annual average of about 6 or 7% this coming year. One of the factors for that is the prediction of lower interest rates. We had a 0.25% drop last month. It was on hold this month. Unemployment slightly went up.
Yes.
They are predicting that there might be a drop next month. So anyway, interest rates are more likely to go down than up. One of the things that will increase the demand and therefore prices to push this 6 or 7% growth is this scheme. So it's just adding already to the competitive buyer demand and a really chronic low supply of properties. The federal government have got a mandate to build 1.2 million homes, I think, and from this month just gone, they're already behind 66,000 properties. So there's a demand on trades and things like that. So if you're tradie, probably doing pretty well.
Probably are doing pretty well.
That is an excellent vocation, particularly with AI and things like that. It's going to be hard to replace a plumber and things. So I think that is a career choice that's worth thinking about, which is probably not what this is about. But anyway, I thought I'd mention that as well.
Throw in some extra value.
Yeah.
And let's just shift to rentals for a moment, because you did say that there has been a big demand in rentals, but we've seen that the vacancy rate is at an all-time low. You know,
Well,
and
it has been since COVID, Marissa.
it has
and
been,
I
and
think
it
you
just
said the market average is
hasn't budged, has it?
yeah, the market average is 1.1%
Yeah.
vacancy rate. At Turner, it's 0.5. I don't know why that's the case, but it is. So we would see it as even lower. We manage about 4,000 properties, and there's only 40 properties that are vacant at the moment, and that's because some of them have just come up for relets and so on. So that
That's
is
amazing.
incredibly low.
Incredibly
We used to
low.
manage half
Yeah.
that amount, and we'd have 60 or 70 vacant at any one time.
Yeah.
So it really shows you the demand out there. I think for investors, though, for landlords, you do need to choose a property manager that has all the checks and
Absolutely.
balances and so on to find a good tenant.
Yes.
Really, the key role is to find a quality tenant up front. Sadly, we get many applications and they're just not right. We might get 10 or so on, but you know the quality just isn't there. So really, finding a good tenant is a critical part for investors, and we can certainly help you with that.
Absolutely. And I think, I think that's just a really valid point and a really strong point. Getting a great property manager can make a huge difference to your property portfolio. I'm sure you see that with your clients as well, Brian.
Yeah, and that's why we're just so confident in terms of, I guess, referring clients over to Turners. It's just knowing that like a lot of investors have that, I guess, lack of confidence as to if they're first time investing, like what would the tenants be like and everything. Like, so just going back to Lockie's point in terms of like really selecting a really, really good tenant, because a good tenant can bring you a long way as a property investor as well.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up now, but before we do, I'm going to ask Lockie to give his final tip for a seller, final tip for a buyer, and I'll ask Brian to give his final tip for an investor, and then we'll leave you again for another quarter. So Lockie, final tip for buyer and seller, please.
No worries. Thank you very much, Marissa. I'll start. I'll start with a buyer. I've said this a few times in the past, but the platforms under which properties are available to find for sale are changing. It's not difficult, but the hard part is that just super historically and quickly, everything used to be in the paper. And then everything used to be on the major portals like realestate.com.au and the domain portal.
Yeah.
Now, with all the tech we've got, and I've said this before, sorry if you've heard it, the key agencies or the better organised ones and potentially the bigger ones, sometimes the smaller ones, are just marketing on their platforms. Some of them are just marketing there and nowhere else. Some of them start there, like for a week or so, and then go to the majors. Please do register as a buyer with turnerre.com.au. Do it with Toot, do it with Harris, do it with the really organised ones as well. And I just say this just to help you as a consumer. It's actually annoying for a consumer. Like a buyer, they would prefer to go to one platform, but unfortunately, it's driven by some of our clients too. They don't want to go on major platforms. We just sold a unit group yesterday just off turnerre.com.au. It's the second one we've done. So unless you're with Turner and in our network and part of our buyers, you won't see it. So register with many agents as well as look at the major portals. You can set up alerts on realestate.com.au for your favourite suburbs, and you'll automatically be emailed when a property is listed on there.
Very good tip.
That's what I do.
What about tip for sellers?
Seller, just consistently we see sale results or sale values achieved well beyond what we anticipate, and certainly beyond the dream of many property owners when they go to the full market. So that means work hard to present your property. Work with us to do that. Get it looking great. Market it widely. You can start on our Turner exclusive like I just mentioned. And you might get a great result just doing that, like we just did with the unit group. But generally you'd go to the full market as well. So present it well, market it widely, and some big prices are being achieved out there. So that's my tip for sellers.
Yeah, awesome. And Brian, over to you. Tip for property investors.
Yeah, I think for property investors, it's just going back to the fundamentals. I think knowing what your strategy is in the short, medium, and long-term goals is really, really important. There's really no point trying to time the market in whatever capacity you can, because the market is just like, it just does its own thing. 12 months ago, we were having the same conversation as to whether property prices can still increase. And here we are 12 months after, and 12 months later, it'll be the same as well. So there's no point trying to time the market. What's more important is knowing or understanding what you need to get to where you want to be. So that's just going back to the fundamentals of having your strategy, your plan in terms of what sort of properties you're looking at, how many properties you need to achieve, and what sort of time frame you're working with. A lot of investors, like I mentioned, have got a lot more confident as well. because the growth that we're seeing across properties, like you're able to now extract equity a little bit much earlier as well. The rent or the yield that you're getting 12 months ago when interest rates was much higher, and now it's much lower, your yield is much higher as well right now. So there's a lot of more confidence from a property investor's point of view. So I guess my biggest tip is to really just not procrastinate further. If you're looking at getting into the market, speak to a property investment advisor, speak to, just get your plan ready, because the next best thing is to really just take action.
I think the common theme with all of those tips is just plan and be proactive.
Get your finance approved and rise high. That's what you got to do. That's the first
Be
step.
proactive. If you're a buyer, register. If you're a seller, plan for, get your property ready. If you're a property investor, make sure you've got a plan and a strategy. Thanks for joining us again today. We will see you again in a few months' time, but we hope that you have a great time, and we hope that you make the most of this beautiful spring weather, and happy buying.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.